You're listening to the Deadly Uncle Podcast,
a safe space for deadly uncle conversations.
All right, next up we have Dwight Farahat.
Dwight is a Métis. He lives in Calgary and he mixes hip-hop with the work that he does with youth in the community.
And also, he received a Change Makers Award at the YYC Awards. It's amazing to see that he's getting awarded for all the hard work he does, and it's nice that he brings it through music.
That's right. So stick around. Dwight's got a great story, and you're not going to want to miss it.
I'm from the Siksika Nation. I'm registered in the Siksika Nation. My dad's from the Siksika Nation, but I'm from a community called Forest Lawn. Like to be from somewhere, you really got to know where things are. Like when I go to the res and stuff, like people are like, "Yeah, meet me over here," or like, "Meet me at the Twin Towers." I'm like, "Where are the Twin Towers?" So like when I say I'm from Siksika, it's kind of like I'm from Siksika, but I don't know where you know what I mean? I've never lived there. So, yeah, but I know where everything is in Forest Lawn.
You know what? We grew up in Forest Lawn as well.
Hey, my guys.
When I used to obviously party and used to get wild when I was in high school and stuff. So a lot of the places that I would go and party, a lot of my friends that had parties were in that area. Yeah. That is just the truth.
And I didn't grow up there, but I spent my late teen to early 20 years in Forest Lawn partying with this guy. So.
Yeah. Yes. Sober now for 13 years.
Yeah.
3 years for this man. So anyways, that was a crazy time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you grew up there, and what style of music did you grow up with in your house?
Like my mom always listened to old timer stuff. She loved like the Beatles and Patsy Cline and stuff like that. But I really fell in love with hip hop and rap, at a quite young age. I thought I put that on.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I thought that was Kurt's phone.
I did it on airplane mode, like you said. So, but yeah, I grew up like listening to rap and hip hop, and actually at first I didn't like when I was a kid. I really didn't like hip hop because in like grade 1 is when rap kind of started to become commercialized and started to come to Calgary, right? Like, and so back then in grade 1, I was like Bruce Lee, Rambo was my favorite movie, and Guns N' Roses and Michael Jackson. And then there started to be kids who were listening to rap, and they started coming to school wearing their pants super low, and they're wearing their clothes backwards.
Yeah.
So you remember that, right? Like,
yeah.
So I'm a grade 1er, and I'm looking up to these grade 6ers, and I'm like, yo, like, you can't run, you can't kick, and your clothes are back. And so I was like, rap sucks because you can't kick like Bruce Lee anymore. You're not bad like Michael Jackson anymore. Like, you're not tough like Guns N' Roses. That's what and so in my grade 1 mind, that's what I thought rap was about. But later on in my life, there's a rapper called Coolio. He just passed away a little while ago, but a song was playing called "A Can of Corn," and I came in the room and I'm making fun of it. I'm the younger guy, right? And I'm like, and it's like saying "a can of corn, a can of corn." I tried to get full off a can of corn, and so I come in being, the young guy just fooling and stuff, and making fun of the song and my big brother's music and whatever. And then someone was like, "Yo, he's like talking about being hungry," and I was like, "Word." And so later on, I took that tape and I listened to it by myself, and I like really listened to it for the first time. And I felt like Coolio was saying parts of our family's story. And that's when I was like, yeah, this is important. And that's when I started listening to music and rap, like really listening. Like before, I only listened to music, not for the lyrics or for the words. It was more like melody and like, can I move to it, or how does it make me feel? And then hip hop was like, how does somebody's story become a part of my story, or make me stronger in my own struggle? So yeah, that's kind of how I fell in love with rap and rap music.
Well, that's amazing because like when even for myself when I first was introduced to rap, it was more about the almost the strength of community and stuff. It was a different style of rap than what it turned into later on when NWA and all those things came out. So I remember
The
all of
first
us,
rap
yeah.
for me, honestly, it wasn't about community. It was about what's a Two Live Crew. That's what hit Red Deer.
Oh yeah, those
Two
guys are
Live
crazy.
Crew is what hit Red Deer
Boom.
first, and I'm like, what the is this? I'm like, I gotta listen to more of this.
Well, the first one that I was exposed to was Public Enemy and Run DMC. And some of those songs were about strength in the community and, fight the power, just always have your eyes open and, those type of things. And then, of course, I got into sipping gin and juice and all those things. Yeah, that's wild. When you think about it, you know, you put young testosterone, you know, and you add weed, you add alcohol, and that mind frame that was going out at the time, and it really like influenced me to, kind of like yeah, see things in a crazy way.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember it being like an influence on me to do certain things when I was drunk and stuff, like yeah, that's crazy when I think back about,
Yeah.
how it began as something that was like a positive thing, and then I fell into some of the gangster rap and stuff and was influenced because, at the time I was dealing with major addictions and that, so
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. Like I never really had like the Public Enemies in my life. Like I never saw Public Enemy tape until I was like way older. Um, but there was a group called Goody Mob who really started to make me think about the world in a different way. Like uh, Goody Mob would talk about things like, I remember there's one line like he's talking at CeeLo. He's a member of the group, and he's talking about like they claim that this community is so drug free, but it don't look that way to me because I can see. And he's like starts talking, explaining the things in his community, right? And then also talking about a fence being built around his community uh, to keep crime out. But then his observation was like maybe they built this fence to keep us in. And
Yeah.
so it is a way of thinking of like, wow, okay, like realizing like what real depression oppression is, and like also like what unity can do. There's another song that they may call live at the OMLI 1 Million Man March or something like that. And that song was just like, I remember like walking down the alley being like changing the words, right? 1 million natives inside. Even though you try, 1 million natives inside. And I'll be like in the freezing cold, like getting all pumped up, like, let's take this back, right? And like feeling fired up and feeling proud of like myself and connected to something bigger than myself, like through the music.
That's amazing. And that's what I think music really does. Whether it's hip hop, country, blues, folk, whatever it is. I think like when we write as artists, it's a huge part of our healing. It's a huge part of who we are in that moment, and it's I used rap for many, many things in my life, positive and negative, and I'm still a fan of it. I still have a 12-inch sub in my SUV that I'm a bass head. I love.
He's a deadly uncle.
Yeah. I
That's
love
right.
the bass in my car. It just never left me from the '90s. So actually, when I rolled up to Trent, he's like, "Oh," because I came up and it was booming, eh? And he's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going, 1993?"
I'm kind of an asshole sometimes.
You have to be. You have to be.
But for me, hip hop was the '90s. I didn't really listen to it past that for me, and because I don't really relate to a lot of the themes that are going on in hip hop right now. But I mean, for me, hip hop was a lot of things too. Like
Yeah.
if we're talking groups that inspired me, like Boogie Down Productions and KRS One were my favorites back in the day when we were younger listening. But yeah, they definitely had an influence on my mindset, though. You're right.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
though I was from Red Deer, I was hard.
Yeah. No, yeah, no, it's, it's interesting. And so I really like the fact, that you've taken, the initiative with this art form that you've built around yourself, and you must have connections to your childhood through storytelling, through all those things. And you actually work with youth with this music. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So I'm the founder and CEO of the Tribe Artist Society, and you know, like I've been doing youth work and social work type stuff since like 2009. Um, and I would always be like running hip hop groups for other agencies and stuff like that. And what I found is when I would leave those agencies, those groups would kind of fail or not fail. They would just fade away slowly, right? And then I realized like um, that when you start a program with youth, you actually start a family, and usually like if you're working with high school kids or whatever, it's usually for that program is going to be a 3 4 year commitment for that specific group. And so yeah, I just like I teach rap and I teach songwriting inside CYOC, Calgary Young Offender Center, in schools, and then we run our weekly community program. And a lot of it started out like through my job, like teaching rap and stuff, and I was also doing some volunteering, and I was volunteering in the Young Offender Center, and the sessions just like went really good. And I asked the guys like, "What do you guys need right now? What do you want me to try to make happen?" And the guys were like, "We want you to come here once a week and cipher with us, and we want you to make a program in the outside for when we get out, so that we can belong to something." And I was like, "Bet." So I was done, and I was like, started writing personal grants, and I got a personal grant to do that for a year, and I did it. And I realized there just to be sustainable, I had to open up a charity.
Mm.
So yeah, we're about a year, just over a year old as an official charity. And that's a whole nother learning curve. Like it was so much simpler when it was just an artist. um, but yeah, it's a big thing. I love teaching rap and because I love the music and most of all I love what it does for people. Um,
That's amazing, brother.
yeah.
Really amazing work, and to put, it's so important what you're doing, working with our young ones that are, in that lost place there, but at that time, and even if they go to the pen, we never forget our brothers, we never give up on our brothers, and our,
Right.
so that's amazing that you're doing that. And hopefully that positive influence through rap and through writing can take away some of those those pains and those memories of why they're falling into addictions, or why we all fall into addictions as males, as men. And
Mhm.
it's amazing that you're giving something to our males. And it's so important, because we feel like there's a lack of programming, and there's a lack of looking at men's health and mental health, and creating those spaces for us to be able to express ourselves. And that's why we created this podcast, was to, invite people like yourself that are doing things like this. Because a lot of people, I know that, you're very humble in what you do as well. So a lot of people will tune into this and find out who you are, and figure out that this is possible in their community as well,
Well,
right?
big time, big time. And that's the thing, like with hip hop and rap, it's like like programs. What I found, at least for city kids like me, programs were the societies that I could belong to and join. And the thing about hip hop is it's kind of male dominated. Like our groups are open to everybody, but it is very male heavy. Um, but it's a warrior society that you can belong to, where it's cool, it's badass, it's fun, and we're not just teaching like how to write songs and how to rap or how to be the coolest guy. We're actually teaching like confidence, how to play again, how to be free, how to be sure with yourself, how to fumble in front of people and still be okay. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
like that's we used to have like as youth workers, and I really say like when you're a youth worker or a social worker, we start to become the aunties and the uncles of the community.
Yeah.
And we're the society leaders of the community, even though we don't say that as like youth workers. But without that, kids want to belong to something. When I was a kid, like I wanted to belong to something, and little kid gangs and stuff like that. We'd always be part of, and like, but the thing is, we didn't have the uncles in that gang society to lead us, and so we just end up just being like a bunch of kids doing crazy stuff, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so, like, when you go to a show, it's the same feeling as that you get the same thrill you get from like doing a B&E or stealing a car or robbing somebody, because like you got to make a plan, you got to organize, you're doing something dangerous with your friends, and you have a mission that you need to finish and accomplish, and if you don't, there's serious consequences. So
Yeah.
you feel important, right? And same with it's the exact same thoughts and process, whether you're doing a show or you're doing crime, or even if you're like a cop, you're doing it's the same thing, same feelings, emotions, and process. You're just on the other end, right? And when you go through those hard things, those challenging things, your group becomes tighter, and you gain um, like a self belief in yourself that you can do something hard and something important, something risky. And when you do something hard and risky, you become important. You know?
Yeah, for sure. So Dwight, you said before this, you said that you had worked in the social work area, moving into youth work and things like that. What moved you into that area to begin with? Because you didn't start teaching hip hop, you went into social work to help kids. And what was that reason? What in your life kind of guided you to go into that kind of helper position in the community?
Yeah. Um, I lived in like a pretty tough home as a kid. Like it was good, but then bad things would happen every now and then. But I ended up moving into a group home. I think when I was 16 or 15, I got in a really bad car accident. A little bit before that, about a year before that, in high speed chase with the cops in a stolen car, and I broke my back, folded my feet, I smashed both of my face in. This part of my jaw came off, and I pushed it back up. It was wrecked. And so, like, I was going through this recovery, and then I started going through all these legal things, and it just turned out I couldn't live at home anymore. And so I moved into a group home, Nikanan group home, and
Oh, wow. Just 1 second. Negan Group Home. Do you know Kirby Redwood?
I do, yeah,
That's
yeah.
my first cousin.
No way.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, keep on with your story. Sorry.
Yeah, and I moved into the group home, and is the native run group home. There was a bunch of native guys who worked there. So like Kirby Redwood, Adrian Goulet, Reg Nipanak, like all these native guys with long hair, and and there was something like about them that I actually saw for the first time. It's not like there wasn't positive native men around me before, but I never saw them.
Hmm.
When I moved into the group home, I really saw them, and they started to change the definition of like what I thought an Indian is and was. The definition of Indian started to become like somebody who's happy, somebody who makes me feel safe, someone who takes me to ceremony, someone who cares about me, someone who actually cares about my unborn kids. And like Kirby Redwood and all of them made such a huge impact on me. Like when I was in the group home, I was like, this is what I want to do when I'm older. And it started to change the picture of who I thought I was, because before then I would always say like I'm gonna die at 15. Like I can't change like who I am, and I was given like really negative beliefs about me because of my DNA when I was very young, and I accepted them, and that shaped the picture of me just growing up, not like dying at 15. And so I started to take those steps. When you have a picture of who you are, you start walking towards it, no matter you know what the picture is or you don't. And my picture was like, I'm going to die before I'm 15, and I'm hopeless. And 2 days before my 15th birthday, I got in that car accident. And then I moved into the group home and I saw these guys, and the picture of who I thought I was and who I wanted to be changed. Like
That's awesome.
straight up, like Indian changed into from something bad to something powerful and awesome. And something
That's amazing.
Such a small world that that connection. That's cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
Because I know Kirby and I know he grew up how he grew up too, and so he had to heal a lot before he got to there to help you. So like his healing journey led to your healing journey, and
hell
that's
yeah.
a connection. Like that's what we need more of in our community. Like
it's exactly what. And Kirby is also going to be a guest on the show here, and it's exactly what it is supposed to be. Our older men are supposed to inspire our younger men. I had Daryl Jr. on here last night, and he was talking about how his hair. He was inspired by the older guys on the dance floor.
Mm,
To grow his hair as a young boy. So he told his mom when he was in grade 3, "I'm going to be growing my hair now, mom. I want that long hair like the other dancers. And
yeah.
now he's the one inspiring the young ones to grow their hair,
yeah,
and that's exactly what the medicine wheel teaches is when the older ones are getting ready to pass away. They sit with the young ones because they want those teachings to move on. They want those teachings to move on through the younger generation, those ceremonies and those ways of being. And even me, I'm just finding out like so many different things like through doing my film, about even what my true name is, you know
Mm, yeah.
like, and it's just, yeah, it's amazing. The elders say we could live 5 lifetimes and not know the full ceremony and culture of the indigenous people. So it's just amazing. you know it's amazing what you're doing. Honestly, I'm and so tell me about the Changemakers Award as well.
yeah. And what
So
is that? And
yeah.
what did you win it for? Because I'm not from
Yeah.
your area, so I'm not really familiar with the Changemakers Award.
So Changemakers Award. It's through the USAY, or the Aboriginal Society. What is it? Urban Society for Aboriginal Youth.
Yes.
And it was the first year they're doing this Changemaker Award. And I believe, like, I kind of just got an email and they're like, "Hey, you've been nominated." And I was like, "Wow, great! Uh, that's wonderful." And I guess what they were doing is they were making a magazine with youth in the community, or they were doing a project with youth. And the youth were like, "Hey, we want to do the magazine, the USAY magazine or New Tribe magazine on change makers." And then the facilitators were like, "Cool, who do you think the change makers are?" And the youth reached out to the community and started asking other youth who's a change maker who's impacted your life. And yeah, one of the youth or somebody nominated me. They didn't tell me who, and I think it's
That's
it's
awesome.
really cool. Yeah, and you know, I really I've been doing youth work and working with our people and other youth in the community since 2009. And I've had a lot of hardship, um, like a lot of youth pass away from all sorts of terrible things. We lost three this summer, even, like, and to receive this, like, my heart's really heavy a lot, and it just means a lot to be thought of and be recognized and nominated by youth, because sometimes you can just be like, why do I do this underpaid job just to get my heart broken all the time? And, like, I know why, because it's like, I'm working with these kids, and when I work with the kids, it's like I'm working with me. I'm working with the 14-year-old me. I'm working with my nieces, my nephews, and and they're important and they're special, and that's how I really feel when I work with youth and young people. And I'm shifting more to working with artists now, like older artists, 18 kind of and up, to be honest. And because I'm finding there's a big, huge gap, where a lot of people who want to come to our programs, they're like, I'm fresh out of treatment, I'm 23, I'm from Edmonton, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
anybody here, I want to belong to something.
I think a lot of artists, especially at a young age when they're coming into the music industry, need an uncle of some kind to give them a little bit of guidance, because there's a lot of ways you can steer yourself in the wrong direction. There's lots of predators, financial predators in the music business. Like, there's all kinds of things that if you're not prepared for it, that's why so many people quit so quickly, because they don't have those people to help them, guide through those shark waters of music, right?
Yeah, that's for real. And, like, hip hop, we have special needs too. Like, we need not special needs, but, like, there aren't any places for us to exist. And so I'm really working on making a center. That's like my dream, a place where we can be loud. Because so many times I've run programs at different places, like, yeah, we're youth friendly, blah blah. Yeah, we want this happening here, and you're like, cool. And then you show up with 15 kids, 15 native hip hopper kids who look gangster or whatever, and we start being loud and laughing and having a good time, and they're like, oh, that's what being youth friendly means. That's what I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah. We thought you guys would be a little quieter.
Aren't you
yeah,
doing
yeah,
here?
Little more quiet, please.
yeah. And so hip hop, we need a home, and I'm gonna make that home.
Good.
For
That's
people,
amazing.
Right
where
on.
we
Yeah.
can smudge, where we can be loud, where you're greeted by, like, people, who belong to the hip hop community, and, like, even if we have to have a security guard, it's gonna be a hip hopper. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it's a different vibe, and I feel uh, like that's missing in Calgary, and I would like.
I think it's missing in a lot of places, like an
Mhm.
after program for treatment and also CYOC or all those
Yeah.
things, like something.
Federal prisoners have
Yeah.
nowhere to go, like
Like
when they
for
come out.
something for like them to belong to, like you said, or else they're going to be looking for trouble or, find themselves in trouble. Like
Yeah.
a lot of, I'm sure a lot of youth, they look forward to that night for the whole week.
Yeah,
So really, that's amazing.
yeah. And honestly, like, that's really what we're doing, is, like, what I'm trying to build here. What I'm trying to do is just is pass on that same feeling that I got from Kirby and those guys. Like, I often ask myself, like, I don't really talk with Kirby much anymore, but I'm like, in my mind, like, I talk with Kirby a lot. I'm like, yo, what would you do in this situation? Or what would Kirby do? How should I lead? Because he's somebody who I look up to a lot, right?
Yeah.
And to have those people around, and being able to reach out as well for, like, help developing a charity or with questions, like, Kirby and them have been very open to my phone calls and my help, and same with Leanne from USAY. And, like, right now, like, doing this charity and trying to make it, like, actually last for a long time, I've just been feeling like a kid for the last 2 years, bumping into walls, trying to do things that should be easy and takes me 4 days, and then, like,
Just keep grinding, man, because it's worthwhile. And, That's what it takes is hard work and people that really believe in something to make it work, right? Because nobody's going to give it to you, nobody's going to create those spaces for you, and if you don't do it, nobody else probably will until somebody else gets as inspired, right? So it's important what you're doing, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I just, one of the things that we're asking all the artists is, what is your plans? What's your 10-year plan? I know you mentioned the building. Tell us a little bit more about that. Is it going to be a building that's for all creative youth, like film, all kinds of things, or is it going to be more towards music and stuff?
Like I've been that's why I have my goals on my board because my 10-year plan shifts so much. And so
Yeah,
like, my three goals for this year were hire a second awesome staff. I actually ended up hiring two staff, so now our whole agency is three people, and get a sweet space where we can be loud. So that's my two goals for this year. And the way I see this space is, I see our agency kind of growing in the future. Of course, we're still going to always be running youth programs for young people, but I think a major component that we're going to be doing and moving towards is really walking and mentoring that older crowd for a long time. Because what happens is they're in foster care or whatever, and they're with these programs, and then they turn 18 and they're like, yeah, you can come until you're 30, but it's just weird. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so, having that age group, it's super underserviced, and these guys, these guys, girls, humans, they're getting lonely, and they need something to belong to, and I really want the center to like have a recording studio, and I really want everybody to be able to have their own space. So if I could be like, hey, if someone's like, I'm looking to write an album, and I just need a place to like work on this project, it's like, hey, cool, here's your office for 3 months. Leave your stuff here. You could be loud. Oh, I'm working on a painting or whatever. And so I eventually imagine having like videographers, their visual artists, and music people, like anything you kind of need for music, and a lawyer or a counselor or a financial advisor, like just all of those things that like a record label would have, but for the community, and along with cultural, like with our cultural stuff, and with people you can really talk to, like not people who are there to for you to make money so we can make money off you. No, just people who want you to succeed and we can help you.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing for sure. Speaking about a center, I just got another question for you here. Is there any centers that you know of in in Calgary for Indigenous people or youth or anybody to have sweats or a safe place to pray with inside the city limits of Calgary? I'm talking. Do you know of any place like that?
Yeah, I think hall services, they used to have open community sweat. I think once a week with Casey Eagle speaker. I
Yeah,
I don't know if they still do it or not, and that's the only one I know of that's in the city. But also Kirby, Miskanawa, they do public sweats quite often, and they sometimes give rides
yeah.
to
And
their
so that's like on the outside of the city for some people who can't make it. They give rides, eh?
yeah, and
Amazing, 'cause one of the things that we want to see is an actual center that's built for Indigenous people, almost like how non-Indigenous people have a place to pray. We want to see a place for us, a safe place that's actually a stable building that stays there for more than a couple years till the funding runs out or whatever they're doing. Like a church, something that's really solid where we can have sweats in the summer, where we can have praying in the winter. It's a safe place within the city limits, so people don't have to get rides out into the land. It's more for the inner city people. I think every major city in Canada or in actually Turtle Island in North America should have this.
heck yeah, and like that would be nice to even just see bylaws be passed to where you can have a lodge in your backyard. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like because there's over 500 or 600 churches in Calgary, and there isn't a place, you know,
That's
uh,
exactly what I was saying. Yeah. You know?
yeah, and that's a huge need, and just having that piece of land to do that, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, we've seen like the Friendship Center in Calgary, how many different times they've had to move because of funding issues and all different types of things. We need a place that's solid, just
yeah,
like a church that's been there for 50, 60, 100 years. That's something that we
Mm.
need, and it shouldn't have to deal with funding. It should just be built,
yeah,
and we should just have something like that.
and just gave and like, you know what I mean?
We should start a GoFundMe for that. No, I'm
Yeah.
just kidding.
Yeah.
I have heard of there's something about an indigenous center they're trying to build, and that's a big part of it. But I
Yeah.
imagine that what will happen with that center is eventually it will just get serviced out. And so it'll be like that's where you can access food bank. That's where you can access housing. It'll become like the source.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be
Our,
like the central
our
agency
spiritual
for.
place
Yeah. Yeah.
instead
We
of
need
just
a place like, I don't know if you've ever seen the inside of palm makers here.
no.
But pond makers, I should say, here in Edmonton area. But it's got a beautiful space on the inside, like a beautiful big dome with all the
Wow.
buffalo hides and everything, and the medicines in the middle. And yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I would love to see that, but not have to be in a treatment center to be
Yeah.
able to use those accesses.
I have seen something like that in the city, but it's not accessible to the public. The Government of Canada and Indigenous Service Canada office have a ceremony room where they bring people in and they smudge and they an elder talks and whatever, but it's not really open to the public. It's for their employees or people coming to meet their employees or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And like it's kind of crazy because when I was a kid, not a kid, but I was like 18 or 19. This was a long time ago. I don't know if they still do it, but I traveled to Winnipeg and Regina. I was cruising with this medicine man who cruised around for like 2 months. But we ended up going from ceremony to ceremony. And I remember being in the middle of like Winnipeg. I'm pretty sure it was Winnipeg or Regina. We were in a school field doing an all night ceremony. And I don't know how they got permission or if they just did it and said, we don't need your permission. Um, but that was something really neat. And what was really cool about those ceremonies is that like the gang problems were like, I don't know if they're still bad there. I still think they are probably, but like they're pretty harsh. It was very, you could see it. And, at those lodges, those all night lodges, you would have guys from different gangs who came together for ceremony and there was no problems. And they were like, you know, they started like leaving their gangs and started becoming a part of this lodge that would happen in the city, and they would go to each other's houses and like travel with them and sing songs and go to different houses, and it's just like so native. It was almost like they didn't. I don't know how they got permission, but it's almost like they just said, "We don't care. We're doing it."
Yeah, that's pretty amazing,
Yeah,
like for real. And I think maybe that's what needs to be done,
Yeah,
you
but it's
know?
it's not surprising either because the government made us keep our ceremonies hidden for so long that that's something we would probably be used to, right? Like
right.
you do it in private, you don't care anymore. Like
Yeah.
fuck you.
Well, see, that's the mentality I think that we have to change as indigenous people, is thinking that we have to be out on the land. No, we need a space in every major city to be able to do this. A
Mm-hmm.
safe space that's protected, the outside, the inside. And I really hope to see that, happen one day, for all of us, for sure.
Heck yeah,
Yeah.
and something and land that we own, like native owning land it's such a foreign concept to these big agencies and like even like charities, big giant native charities like Miskanawa. When you talk to Kirby, like how much are they paying rent a year, right? But
Yeah.
they don't own their building, which is, it probably costs be cheaper to own it. Or how many times have they moved lodges like the Friendship Center? Why don't they have a piece of land that's just
Yeah.
ceremony. Like, and I know there's like charity law that kind of restricts and makes it very challenging to buy property, but like if we're talking about real reconciliation and truth, just like where's the plot of land?
Yeah.
Why can't they give us a plot of land that's held in trust? Like all the
Yeah.
land that's all the crown land in Canada is held in trust for the
Yeah.
indigenous people by the crown. You know, why do we have to buy land?
With
That's my question,
with
right? Like
with all the respect in the world,
yeah.
in this statement that I'll make here, I would much have a safe space to pray, rather than an apology. And all the money that they spent, the hundreds of millions of dollars that they spent for an apology, would have been nice to put towards building these spaces across North America.
To help
You know?
people heal, because that's what's really needed.
Yeah, exactly. You
Well,
know?
that's the thing with a lot of the calls to action is they're kind of seem to be completing a lot of the ones that are like showboaty ish, but
Yeah.
not like have they raised the funding per capita on reserve for K to 12 education to the legal limit? I don't think so.
No.
Right?
No,
Like like sorry doesn't mean anything. You know,
no,
and
no.
I
They're
think
spending that.
there's
Go
a
ahead.
reason why they say like they like this stereotype is oh you guys get your education paid for and this and that and like sure some of us get to win our university paid for, but they never highlight K to 12 is funded at an illegal limit, and so like who cares if university is paid for if you're not able to get people past grade 7. You
If
know
you
what I
don't
mean?
have a level playing field of education as non-indigenous
Yeah,
kids, right?
And
yeah.
then in some of our communities, they, like I said, they spent these hundreds of millions of dollars on this apology. But what about the communities that don't even have clean water yet?
Mm-hmm.
There's many communities they still have to boil their water. And so I just, yeah, it's really, it's reconciliation. It's we're still in the beginning of telling the truth. I think we're still, until all those graves are found, until the true truth has really come out about the Canadian history and Indigenous people. I think then we can start to work towards some sort of reconciliation. And it should start off with a safe space for us, a church for us, something that where Indigenous people belong, to be able to practice their ceremonies and who we are within our city limits, not
Mm-hmm.
out in the bush.
Yeah, and I think that like a byproduct of that would be stronger families, and I think that one of the most important things in our communities and the biggest act of resistance that we can have is being a healthy, happy family. Healthy in your heart, in your body, in your finances. The biggest act of because we have these conversations and we see the news and we get like we physically get stressed out and that stress poisons us.
Yeah.
It poisons our bodies and our spirits and our minds and I think anything that is going to allow us to be stronger as a community. Sometimes I feel like those important things have been blocked, and sometimes I wonder when it's time for those things to be unblocked, is that when all of the land is fully solidified in Canada's name legally? Um, because it's like if we can keep your population uneducated and broken families, then it's harder to unite and take legal action, right? Like there's a reason why it was illegal for us to have lawyers up until like not even long ago, right?
Yeah.
That's because they wanted to make laws and and take care of or take the land from us, right? And take like right now, it's still illegal for Indians to control our own money. So that's why we have Indian Affairs and Northern Development, or whatever it's called now. And whatever Indian Affairs has been called, it's always been tied to the land. It's been Indian Affairs and mining, Indian Affairs and natural resources. It's because Native people legally own the natural resources on the land according to their laws, but they put in a law where we're not allowed to control that. And so if you keep the population uneducated and hurting, then they can't mobilize and 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 enforce the actual law and entitlement. You know what I'm saying? It's bonkers.
Yeah. Totally, totally. It is just, the reason why we even started this men's podcast was to have these conversations, to be able to have a space to where we can start the narrative as, as and follow suit in our women's healing,
Mm-hmm.
with
Yeah.
them getting into circles and beading circles, talking stick circles, ribbon skirt making circles, and we have to follow suit in that healing, and to have a space like this. And we were talking to our good buddy Garth, also, who works with Bent Arrow, and he runs two men's group that's online a week, and I had no idea, and he has men that join from all over the place through Zoom. And he said a lot of times men will join more easy through Zoom, especially older men, because they don't really feel comfortable going into those spaces yet. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it's just finding those different ways of how do we bring people together. Just like a lot of people, when they watch this, they're gonna get a chance to know who you are and what you do. And hopefully maybe somebody will watch this and say, well, my son needs a place to go.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter needs somewhere to go. After schools, there's got to be a positive program, and so you throwing on these things is just, it really fills a gap that needs to be filled. I truly believe that.
And I don't know if I missed this, but do you have a weekly thing happening at a place right now in Calgary?
Yeah, Monday rap nights at Arts Commons from 5 to 7, age 18 to 26.
And how do people register for it?
They just there's not really registration. Usually, people just DM me on Instagram at Tribe Artist Society.
Okay.
Tribe Artist Society.
Tribe Artist Society. Okay.
And I just have one follow up question. How come you don't have a rap night for 48-year-olds?
You know, we are open to that.
Sorry, I had to lighten the mood here a little bit.
We're totally open to that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, this is cool talking to you, man, and meeting you, and
Yeah.
everything about the conversation was good. It was cool connecting you to my cousin and
Yeah.
connecting you to all this great healing in the community. So that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's I've known Dwight for a long time, and we've performed in a few different spots together, and Jube School, all those different things, and so we've always put in that work, and it's I always wondered how it would be difficult to teach rap in a positive way with how I've dealt with it, but you've done a wonderful job. And I think it's just amazing that you've brought the positivity back to hip hop, in your own way, and I think that there's a lot of and I believe that's why you got that Change Makers Award too as well. It's because you're filling that gap, with something that's current with the kids right now. You know what I mean? Which is cool. TikTok, all those things. So yeah, that's really amazing, man, and good job. And we thank you for being on our the Deadly Uncles podcast. And yeah,
And Dwight Farahat is definitely a deadly uncle.
there we go.
Hey, thank you, brother.
I'm gonna end everyone now.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so great. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate you guys. Keep doing what you're doing.
Awesome. Have a good day, brother.
Okay, I'm gonna stop.
Hi, hi.
You're listening to the Deadly Uncle Podcast,
a safe space for deadly uncle conversations.